Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host Maxine and we're on episode 161. Now this episode is juicy, okay? A lot has transpired the past few days as far as topics that resonate with me and what I just am so excited to sound off about. I just finished watching this documentary called Hillsong, Megachurch Exposed. Now, if you don't do anything else, I want you to watch that documentary right now. After you listen to this episode, of course. I do want you to listen to it. I know I may give spoilers, but still watch the documentary because you have to watch it. That's one. And two, I think there's just so much spiritual abuse happening in this world today, back then, many years ago, and that will continue to happen unless we are not aware of just the red flags of what spiritual abuse looks like, of what religious abuse looks like, of what church hurt looks like. And I don't even like saying church hurt because I noticed that when pastors use that, like in their preaches, in their sermons, they would say it very condescendingly, like, oh, she just had church hurt. Oh, he just got church hurt. And it's just kind of like a immature label placed on someone's real experiences of abuse in the church. And even combining the word abuse with church is so taboo still, yet it is so common, unfortunately. So anyway, Hillsong Megachurch Exposed is the name of the documentary. Again, I highly recommend it. Even if you are someone who did not grow up in the church, who does not come from a religious background, I still think it's just a nice cautionary tale because the thing is with the church, and the way I'm sounding right now sounds like I'm against the church. I'm not, but I think that ultimately what I'm pushing forward in every episode and just the way that I live, now that I am like my own adult, right? And I'm not like in this condition thinking that I was in years before, for so long. I just ultimately want to push out that your relationship with God is your relationship with God. It's not for you to explain to anyone. It's not for you to portray in a certain way for anyone. It's not for you to put on a show for anyone. It's not for approval of others. Like, it's really a personal relationship. And unfortunately, that was not the rhetoric that I was raised up on. And I was under the conditioning that I have to be a Christian that looks like this, that dresses like this, that speaks like this, that is pushing this agenda like this. And I was just like doing that for so long until I realized that this is bullshit, And I think a lot of us are so caught up in that conditioning, and it really just takes a snap of the fingers for you to wake up. And but like, I know the whole rhetoric, the whole like, the rhetoric of, oh, you're woke, or, you gotta wake up is so overused, but it's really just the only way to put it. Like, you just literally wake up. You wake up in an instant, and I'm snapping my fingers because it's literally just like that. You wake up and suddenly you don't think the way you used to think. Suddenly the past 10 years or the last 20 years of your life, you were one way, and now suddenly you don't believe in any of that anymore. Like, suddenly you are so confident in your new way of thinking and your new way of living that what you thought and believed in and practiced so diligently before is no longer of you today. And you actually cringe at that former you. You actually feel misrepresented in that former you, and you're peeling out the layers of who you are, and you're standing in that. And that's what I always encourage in all of my episodes here on this podcast, or like all of my more recent, I don't know what episode when I stopped. Cause okay, those who are OG listeners of God Built This Podcast, shout out to y'all. Thank you. But you know that in the beginning of this podcast, if you go back to the very beginning, you know that I started off this podcast by ending every episode with a prayer. Okay, I would pray at the end of the episode, and I was like nervous about that because I was like, well, I don't like, not necessarily don't like it praying in front of everyone, but I felt like I was responsible for praying for you as you listen to my episode. And I was just putting pressure on myself, and I just felt like, oh, I'm starting this podcast. The title of this podcast has God in it. And I was very adamant about that. And I still I'm not changing the name of my podcast. That's just is what it is. God is still within me and all that. And that's fine. I just thought in my like box way of thinking was, well, since God's in the title, that means I have to be this like cookie cutter Christian and end with prayer and maybe even sing a praise and worship song. Like it just very like, girl, what? And I'm like, I think about it now and I'm just thinking like, what was I? But you know what? I'm glad that I did that, and I'm glad that I started off that way because I could see the trajectory of this podcast and how I've grown. And I just think I remember when, you know, the earlier episodes of my podcast, I will end with a prayer, and I can't remember what. I could go back and do the research, but I don't really like doing that. If y'all want to do that for me, please, thank you. But it wasn't too long after, I would say. I don't know, maybe a good 10, 15 episodes in, I stopped praying on the podcast. Maybe, I really don't remember. I just suddenly stopped. And I stopped because I just felt like it just didn't make sense. Like, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm over here, and not to say you can't talk about like sex or relationships and lust and politics and all these things and then end with prayer. It's just, it didn't make sense for me. Like, honestly, it didn't make sense for me. If you want to do that, then that's fine for you, but it just didn't make sense for me. And it didn't feel genuine. It felt like I was putting on a show to make my listeners believe that, hey, I'm this Christian girl and you should know this because I ended my podcast episode with a prayer. And I remember someone told me after listening to my podcast in the earlier episodes, I don't know if she still listens, but she was like, she's happy that I ended it with prayer and I did a good job by doing that because, you know, that's what you're supposed to do type of thing. And when she told me that, like, I was smiling, like, when she was telling me that, like, I was, like, smiling in a way, like, oh, I receive what you're saying. But inside, I was cringing. I was like, what? What do you mean? Like, because even during that time, I wasn't comfortable with the fact that I was praying at the end of my podcast episodes. And I felt like now that she told me or said to me that I should be doing this and she's happy that I did it. And the way that she was saying it was like a phew, like it was a relief. Like, oh, thank God that Maxine is praying at the end of her episodes. And I'm just like, girl, what? Like, if I didn't pray, God loves me less. Like, what the fuck are you saying? So that just made me cringe. And that cringe made me realize that this is not what I want to do. This is not what I feel is necessary for me to do. And again, I'm putting on this show to be this Christian girl for your approval and for anyone back then approval. And it didn't feel genuine for me. And throughout this podcast, I have shown you guys just standing in your truth, standing in your authentic self, and not doing things just to be approved by others. And I was like, again, peeling out that layer. And that was just a literally live example of such. So anyway, I bring that up because I think the impact of the church is so strong that it bleeds into so many areas of your life. And while watching this documentary, Hillsong Megachurch Exposed, it's on Discovery Plus. And if you have Amazon Prime, it's only 3 episodes of this documentary. So you could just do like me and get the 7-day free trial of Discovery Plus if you have Amazon Prime. and watch it like within the 7 days. I watched it all within 2 days. I could have watched it all in that same day, but anyway, watch it within that 7 day trial, and then quickly cancel the subscription, and that's it. So that's what I did, and I watched on the Fire Stick initially because but anyway, it's an amazing documentary, and it talks about the church Hillsong. Hillsong started in Australia, and it got so big that it bled into the US, and there are so many Hillsong churches and just community groups. There's a Hillsong college, and it's a really big deal, and it became a bigger deal when Pastor Carl Lentz came about and was the lead pastor of Hillsong NYC. And Pastor Carl Lentz, I want you guys to take a moment. If you're driving when it's a red light. I know you shouldn't even be on your phone anyway, but you're on your phone. People act like you're not supposed to be on your phone. I know you're not supposed to be, but like, I'm on my phone. I'm not on my phone like as I'm like on the highway, but like maybe, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even say that to y'all. But anyway, Hillsong, Pastor Carl Lentz. When you get a second, go ahead and look up Pastor Carl Lentz, okay? Just look him up, because my God, today. You know how they always like to say like the attractive pastor, they don't have to be attractive actually, because there's something about power. There's something about having popularity and fame placed upon you, and just being in the spotlight. Something about that makes you attractive, right? So that's already natural, right? And to add on top of that, being this like sexy hunk of a man, and you're tatted, like you don't Pastor Carl Lentz doesn't look like a typical pastor, right? He's not like just like withered and like, Father God told me, like he's not looking like that. And he looks like one of us, like he looks young and refreshing and very much hip, and he's tatted up and he's well structured. He works out. He has that V. There's a picture of him walking with Justin Bieber, and they're shirtless, or at least Pastor Carl is shirtless, and not just shirtless, but his box or the shorts, he's wearing cargo shorts. And with cargo shorts, there's so many pockets. I don't know if he had so many things in his pockets at the time, but his shorts were basically about to fall off. Like if he added one more cell phone in a pocket of his cargo shorts, I could have something would have been shown that I shouldn't have seen of a pastor, okay? And that's how he was looking in the picture. Like, what you could see was his bare chest and the V. If you work out really well and you're a man, or like you work out like super, I don't know what the trick is, but like some men have that V shape where it kind of leads you down a passageway to their dick. And so that's exactly what we see in this picture of Pastor Carl Lentz. And it's like, nigga, you are a whole pastor. It's not to say pastors can't work out, or pastors are only supposed to have big protruding bellies. I'm just saying, I shouldn't see the V, okay, leading me towards your penis, pastor. And it's just, it takes you aback. I just feel like with him, he's just so, like, he's just very, like, he's got, like, edgy rock star look. And for him to be this pastor, this man of cloth is just very, it feels like it's not in alignment, right? But, okay, cool. That's great. Your aesthetic will lead people to Christ. Well, hey, praise be to God, right? So it shouldn't be a big deal. But the thing is with that though, like I said earlier, the women, like many women, some women, just people, right? Like to be closer to people who are of that power, of that elite status, of that attraction, right? And so even with pastors, they get groupies, they get love, they're fucking the congregants. It's a thing. Um and I feel like with Pastor Carl Lentz, I'm sure the women in the church are opening their legs, making him see a little peekaboo as he's up there preaching the word of God. And this is nothing new, unfortunately. This is something that is just like, look, what are you doing after service? Like, that is something that I've heard of very commonly in the church, no matter what church it is. It could be an all-white church, any denominational, any denominational church. Just like snork. Any denominational, black church, southern, northern, it really doesn't matter. And it's just a thing. So ultimately, I feel like with him, it was like, I'm not even surprised that he got caught up in the scandal of cheating on his wife and the side girl coming forward. We'll get to that. But let's talk about more of the cult-like environment that a church has and that Hillsong has in particular. So ultimately with churches, specifically with mega churches, they're mega because they're rich, right? Like they're pretty wealthy. They have a high number of attendance, of members, and it's a church where there's a lot of people in it continuously and consistently tithing and putting money towards the church. And the thing about tithing is it is biblical. It's said to, I don't feel like researching right now, but just look it up. But it's about 10% you have to put towards the church of your gross income. So like, you get paid every other week or however you get paid, whatever check you get from your job, you're going to put 10% of that check into the church. And a lot of people have their own personal feelings about tithing. I feel like with tithing is tricky, and I think it's controversial as well. And I think ultimately the thing is with tithing, I don't know, right? There's a story in the Bible, right, that talks about a woman who didn't have anything, right? She was dirt poor and she just couldn't, she didn't have much money. Like she clearly looked like she was in shambles. She didn't dress like the high class women during the time. This is like during biblical times, right? And she gave anything that she had, and she had a dime or something, or like a coin or whatever it was. She had one coin to her name, and she gave that coin to the church, and she did it with faith and knowing that this is what I'm giving to God. This is what I am showing God that I am giving him because I love him, I care for him, and it's a way to show your faith with tithing. And that's a story that a lot of pastors would give on the pulpit. They'll say that if you are dumb broke, right? And not to say dumb, but if you are just not doing well financially, that is still no excuse to not give to the church. You still have some money, give that sum of money to the church, and do it with generosity, do it with love, do it with kindness, do it with an open heart, and do it with faith, because God will repay you 10 times over. And God is a supplier for your needs, right? He is the one to provide and continuously give you provision. All of that is nice, right? Like, I mean, it's a nice thing to say. It's a beautiful story. Like, wow, a woman who didn't have anything still gave what she had. What? Right? And it's, it's always so humbling that, there are people out there who don't have anything to their names, but they still give to others. What am I going to say, y'all? What am I? I think that's nice. Again, I still agree that is nice, but I feel like sometimes that is used as a way to continue to put you down, to have a thumb on your neck, right? I'm putting my foot on your neck, really, to pretty much like, look, you still got to give me your money. I don't care you're broke. You still got to give me your money. And I feel like I don't want to pressure someone who doesn't have much to give that little that you have to quote unquote God, but you coming home to a dark apartment because you couldn't pay your bill. To me, I feel like when Christians are pressuring other Christians to just give your money, who's gonna pay the bill? Hello, is the mic on? Look, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, y'all. I really, it's a controversial topic because I get it. I get the whole, like, God provides, right? I agree with that. I believe that. I absolutely believe that. I just think I don't want to give the church anything. Niggas is funny right now. No, seriously. I just feel like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like, okay, for example, for me, the times when I was just like very much stretching $1, okay, like years ago, look, there's been times when I had to stretch $1 until my next check came in. And let me tell you this, the last thing that I'm thinking about doing is giving that $1 up to the church. Okay? What I'm thinking about is, how can I stretch this $1 until next Friday? Like I'm not thinking about putting this money to the church. I'm sorry. And it's not even like, oh, I'm cheating God. Like, I don't even think about, like, I don't equate God or my faith in God, my adoration in God, to money. Like, that is just beyond me. Like, we talk about, like, the intangible things like hope, love, faith, all these things, yet you want the tangible thing so much, so frequently, and especially when I'm down and out, you still want this tangible thing, and you want me to only hope on or to hold on to the untangible thing. Does that make sense to y'all? Like, you want me to give what I really don't have much of, that I'm holding on to get me through until my next check, and I give it, and all you give me is a prayer. Is the mic on? Can you turn me up? Turn me up, Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty, right? Is that the thing? Seriously. What? It just never made sense in my mind. Like, I feel like not the worst thing, but like, what annoys me is you're going through a hard time, and the only thing people say in response is, I'm gonna pray for you, or you're in my prayers, or I'm gonna lift you up, like anything along those lines. I just find so ridiculous. Just shut the fuck up. Don't. And look, I appreciate a prayer. I really do. It's not to say that prayer isn't powerful. It's not to say that prayer isn't necessary. It absolutely is. And I appreciate that. But I think, though, I want money. It's like, no, I sound crazy right now. But like, dead ass, I feel like sometimes when people say that, it sounds so like dismissive. And I think I'm just like remembering a time when someone said that to me, or said very much of like around those words. I remember when Boston Bay said, I think I was like talking to him about, like, this was years ago, yo, but I still remember it. I was like telling him, like, I was saying how I was just having a hard time financially. I was like making ends meet and whatever. And all he said was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," or "Dang, I'm sorry." Like, it was just very just like, oh, shit, that ain't me. Like, it was just very nothing. And look, even though I'm saying all this, I'm not saying that I want your money, right? I'm not saying that I want you to just, send me something in the Cash App. It's not even that. But I think, though, with the way that he was responding, it was just very much so unhelpful. Like, at the very least, like, give me some advice, right? At the very least, tell me a time when you was down and out and how did you get through, right? Like, share something with me. But you just dismissively saying, "Oh, shit, I'm sorry you went through that." I'm sorry you went through that, nigga. Like, all right. Like, for me, it feels like a slap in the face. And that's how I equate, I'm praying for you. It just sounds like that. Like, oh, girl, I'm praying for you, girl, because shit, that ain't me. But I know that's tough, but I'm praying for you. Like, all right. So, yeah, I just don't like that. But, okay, anyway, Pastor Carlenz is not the typical pastor. And with mega churches, they oftentimes preach this progressive gospel. Now, let's get into the definition of progressive gospel, because it's an actual thing. I'm not making this up. It's an actual just way of sharing the gospel. Okay. Wait. This is not what I was looking for. Progressive. Am I saying it right? It's progressive gospel. Anyway, what I'm looking up is not giving me what I know it is. Anyway, with progressive gospel, oh my gosh, prosperity gospel. My bad. That's what I mean. Prosperity gospel. And with prosperity gospel, it goes on with this, it's a religious belief that among some Protestant Christians, that financial blessing and physical well-being are always the will of God for them, and that faith, positive speech, and donations to religious causes will increase one's material wealth. So basically, like, if you bless the church with $1,000, God's gonna bless you with $10,000. God's gonna heal you from sickness. God's going to just bless your body, and God is going to see you through and bless you with riches and gold and all of these things. And you have a lot of these pastors of mega churches, like Pastor Joel Osteen here in Houston. He preaches this type of this theology, this prosperity theology. And though I feel like the reason why this theology is so popular and so accepting is because it sounds nice, right? It sounds very much positive. Like, wow, all I gotta do is pay up and God will pay me 10 times over. All I gotta do is give this $50 and God will heal me from this sickness. And it sounds like an exchange. And I think, though, the issue with prosperity gospel is God doesn't need that. You know what I mean? Like, God has already given us the gift of Jesus. He's already given us Jesus, right? Jesus has already died for it all. He died for it all. And so through the blood of Jesus, that's all we need. Like, we don't have to sacrifice anything. We don't have to give everything, or like give this, like all of these extra things that these certain pastors will profess is just a tactic. Honestly, sorry, this is uncomfortable, but it's a tactic to get you giving them your money. It's a tactic to make you have their neck under their foot, so that you are continuously grappling around trying to make ends meet, but you always got money enough for the pastor and for the church. And ultimately, what I see tithes as, and what it should be as, and in certain churches it still is as, I'm not saying all churches are impure or corrupt. I think, though, when it comes to mega churches, the money of tithing and of donations, you see that money in how the pastor dresses, right? And how well the pastor is kept, and how luxurious the pastor is living and his family is living. It is not to say that you want the pastor to be struggling, but it's just when the reflection of your congregation is filled with people who are not of that same stature economically. And it's not to say everyone needs to be rich, but are you guys offering scholarships? Like, is the money also going towards scholarships and helping single mothers in the congregation? Is the money feeding the homeless? Like, or is the money only going towards your supreme headbands? Like, is the money only going towards the car note of your Jaguar? Like, what? So I just think ultimately, when you have the money showing more in how the pastor dresses and how he lives, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Growing up, I went to a church, Bethesda. Shout out to Bethesda. If any other Bethesda congregants or former congregants are listening, hey. But I grew up in Bethesda Baptist Church in Boston and Hyde Park, Massachusetts. And this was my second home. My home away from home. I grew up with everyone during that time for many years. And like, we were essential figures in each other's lives. Like, we spent almost every day, if not a couple times a week, with each other. Not just a Sunday thing, but we spent like all day Saturday together. We spent Tuesday evenings together, maybe Friday evenings as well. And we would just be a part of each other's lives because we grew up together. We grew up in this church together. Therefore, we went to each other's graduations and cookouts and parties and hung out and, did frivolous things as young kids would and adolescents would, whatever. So the thing is with Bethesda, though, the church that I grew up in, it was always, it was just always like making ends meet. Like, we always was going through like a financial hardship, but we always got it together. Like, God literally always provided for us. Like, there were times when we were almost going to lose the building that we rented, but by the grace of God, we didn't. Like, it worked out. Something worked out. And, maybe some committee members and congregants came together to ensure that we still had a building to go to worship together. And that was the beauty of our church. We were a community, and we really came together and really just focused on that. And the money that we gave, that everyone gave in tithes, we saw it go towards the church. So like, when there was maintenance to be done or a bill to be paid, it was coming from tithes. It was coming from donations. It was coming from just generous hands. And the money was never seen in the luxury of the pastor. The pastor was always just kind of like down and out, just like us. Like the pastor was always pretty much, like literally just like us. Like he didn't look fancy or just super luxurious of any sort. Like he was just a man passionate for God and caring about our souls, and that was pure and just evident all the time. Not once did I ever feel like, dang, this pastor living large off of our donations, off of our tithes. It was never that. And that was just the beautiful thing about my church growing up. Now, there was a period in time when a new pastor came in and pastored the church for a couple of years. I'm not going to say his name, but those who went to business, I know. And this pastor was very much vibrant. He was charismatic. He was popular amongst the youth. Like he was just like, he had a nice aura about him, or deceivingly so. And he was engaging, and he brought in a lot of people. He encouraged the youth to be more involved, and it was a beautiful time as well. But when corruption hit, it hit. And with him as the pastor at that time, he was not more focused on our souls. He was not focused on our relationship with God and building that and community. He didn't care about that. What he cared about was money. Okay? What he always talked about was money. What he wanted was more money. He wanted a bigger check as his paycheck as the pastor during that time. He wanted more popularity and fame. He wanted more people to come so that he could get more money from the church. There was a period in time when he actually had a whole chart, like those anchor charts, those big poster paper. He had a big anchor chart blown up and placed inside the sanctuary. And this was a chart that stated our financial goals. And he wanted our financial goal to be this certain amount of money. And the goal was to meet that quota. And he placed that in the sanctuary, right? Like that was literally a poster that you would see as you're kneeling to praying to God. That was a poster that you'll see as you're singing during praise and worship. And you would think to yourself, and I was thinking to myself, like, why is this here? Like, why is this even a big deal? Before him, money was never talked about as much of a thing to focus on or worship nonetheless. And there was such a shift in this new pastor because he worshiped money and the fame of it all and this like prosperity type of gospel approach. And it just, needless to say, it just led to a lot of just corruption and dismay and conflict. He ended up breaking up the church, and it just became this whole issue. Eventually, we got back together and got a new pastor who was very much pure and back to who Bethesda was. But for a certain period of time, for a long time, under this new pastor, it was very much this prosperity gospel approach. And the thing about his approach and that approach overall, he was captivating. These prosperity theologians, Joel Osteen, and even some pastors that I've seen, one pastor that I've gone to his church for a while now. I haven't been there in a minute, but like they present that same persona and they have this same energy about them where they're very much engaging, they're very much attractive, right? Like literally all of them I could think of, like very much like not an eyesore. Like, okay, I want to hear what God said to you today. Like it's very much It's giving. It really is giving. And I think that's the thing about prosperity gospel. It has to be led by a pastor who is attractive, right? It has to be led by a pastor who you feel captivated towards, or like, and not even to say, like, even with Joel Osteen, like, I don't necessarily find him attractive, but like, I mean, he's well put together necessarily, but like, you have to have that like charisma and just gauge about yourself. And all these pastors have that thing. They have that thing that just lights up. And it makes you want to listen to them more. It makes you want to obey what they're saying. And that is just the way of pastoring if you want to push forward this prosperity gospel. And the thing about that is, what about your soul? Right? Like, you're worried about, oh, is this woman giving her last dime to God? Because that shows your faith, right? You're now guilt tripping someone who has nothing to her name, who's making ends meet, who's doing her best, and you're guilt tripping her by forcing her essentially to give her last dime. And she's leaving the church, right? She's leaving that Sunday service with no more money and heading back to her dim lit apartment because her lights are off and she only has candles left, and she's just doing what she can, and you're leaving her with a hope and a prayer. Like, if that's not a slap in the face, it feels like a slap in the face, no? So ultimately, I think about like this documentary and just the overall message that I gained from it. Like, it resonated with me so much because of my upbringing, and just how even to this day, anyone could get got. If you're someone who didn't grow up in the church, who's not from a religious background, you may be at a place in your life where you're feeling lost, right? You feel unloved and unwelcomed, and you want a community, because ultimately a church should be a community, right? You should feel like the people who you are praising God with, the people who you are worshiping God with, you should feel like you should trust them. You should feel comfortable with them, that you could discuss intimate details with them. And if you can't feel that, then what's the point of even going to that church? You might as well just continue doing things solo, right? So you go to the church, you're at a place in your life where you don't know left and right, you need some guidance, and you happen to fall to a Hillsong church, one of the Hillsong churches in America, and you're engaged. Like, wow, the praise and worship is engaging. And the thing about music and praise and worship, like, there's a spirit behind that. I'm not saying it's like a bad spirit, but I'm saying like music is intoxifying. Is that the word for it? Let me look it up real quick. Intoxifying. Yeah, it's the word. It's a word, right? Basically, you get drunk off of it. You get inebriated off of music. You're in a spell. You're binded, and I think it's intoxicating. I said intoxifying. Yeah, it's intoxicating. But anyway, nonetheless, you get very much in a trance-like state when it comes to music, or certain songs and certain melodies and the chords, and just stringing it all together. Like, if you are already in a low vibrational state and you hear a song that's like the chords are tuned a certain way, and the voice that comes on is kind of low and melancholy, like, I'm in a trance, bitch. Like, what's next? Like, it's giving trance. And that is sometimes the songs that you'll hear in a church service, right? And the purpose of that is to get you in this state of mind where you are easily susceptible to what's going to be said next, right? So typically, okay, when it's right before giving time, tithing, donating, there is like a slower or somewhat sad feeling song that comes on. And the song is basically about redemption or repentance. Ultimately, like, how can I repent to God? I'm so sorry. I'm a horrible sinner. I'm a horrible person, right? And now you're crying and you feel like God, or you feel like you're not enough for God and you just want to be loved by God and all I want is you, God, right? And there's so many songs that's of that same tone, and the lyrics are beautiful, right? Ultimately the song is nice. Like, damn, this is a hit. Okay. Where can I buy this off of iTunes? Like, it's a hit. But they sing these songs. All of these songs are purposeful. They're purposeful. They get you in the zone. Mind you, I know all of this because I used to be in the praise and worship team at Bethesda, and there was a reason for songs, for certain songs at certain points during the service. Like, you're not going to sing an upbeat song where you're so strong in the Lord, and then next you gotta give to the church. Next you gotta, give 10%. Nah, you gotta sing a song that's more down and out, more like, God, I'll give you my all, just heal me, right? God, I'll give you 20%. I'll give you 20% if you just take away this pain. And so you get that 20%, right? And then the pastor or the praise and worship leader will come in during that point in time and say, you want to give up this weed right now, then give God all you got. If you want to tell God that you are the only God I need. I don't need this money. I don't need the sex. I don't need these men. All I need is you, God. Then I need you to give $20 in tonight's service. Like, there's so many ways to go about it, right? Obviously not in that exact, verbatim, but ultimately it's purposeful. And I think though, when you get out of the church and you just assess what everything was back then, you really get to see it for what it was. Shit, that's so horrible. Look, I'm not saying don't go to church. Damn, I hope that's not the message you're getting from. I really hope it's not the message you're getting from this. I really hope that. I really do. I'm just saying, don't get got. Like, don't let these Pastor Carl Lentz and these other pastors talk about, like, you ain't shit and this whole, like, I'm over that whole woe is me rhetoric, and oftentimes with Christianity and what is like mostly pushed out is that rhetoric of woe is me, I am worthless, I am nothing, and I don't want you to think that you are everything, like you don't need God, right? We all need God, but I think though with that rhetoric, you're not realizing the God in you. Like, you're not realizing how powerful you are, and God created you. Like, therefore, you are just innately powerful. Like, you are just innately equipped and able. And, like, we don't hear that enough. Like, I didn't hear that enough growing up. I had to learn that on my own, in my own personal relationship with God. And I had to walk in that and figure that out on my own. But that wasn't what was preached to me growing up. It was more so you gotta be, if you want God, not if you want him to love you, but like if you want his blessings ultimately, right? Then you have to be this type of Christian. And what's so funny about that is, like, people get blessed every day, B, right? Like, and they never step foot in a church, or they haven't stepped foot in a church for the past 10 years. Yet they're living large. Not to say riches is what God means by blessings, but that may be one of them, right? But ultimately, like, you get blessings nonetheless. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be this certain way in order for God to bless you. And I think once you get out of that mindset, you won't get God. And I'm just here to help you guys not get God. Like, look, go to church. Don't take this as don't go to church or F church. I'm not saying that. And even with megachurch, I'm not saying all megachurches are like that. I think, though, there are a lot of people who are of the cloth, so they say, and they're not really of the cloth. They're really deceptive. And they use church as an easy get-rich scheme and just as a way to get them to a higher level financially, economically, just status-wise overall. And once we realize that, like, we can't live our lives based off of man, based off of what a pastor says. Like, we have to really do what do you, right? Ultimately do you, right? And have that personal relationship with God. Like, I don't want to hear anything else. I don't want to hear, oh, you go to church every Sunday, but you're still full of shit. Okay. Like, like you tithe every Sunday, but you're still full of shit. Like, who are you outside of that? And I think oftentimes, another thing that made me just annoyed is, like, I used to, like, follow a lot of Christian accounts, like, years ago. Not even too long ago, honestly. Just a couple of years ago, I stopped doing that. Like, a lot of Christian accounts, a lot of, like, virtuous, if you want to be a virtuous woman accounts. I used to follow a lot of different accounts of that sort. And I would, like, essentially idolize these people, thinking that they were the truth, the light, the way, Yahweh. Like, it was ridiculous. And I was looking at them, idolizing them, thinking that, wow, I gotta be like them for God to love me enough, or for God to bless me the way that he's blessing them. And half the time, these accounts of these people are fake as hell. Like, they're in shambles of a marriage. They're not happy themselves. They don't have peace in their life. They're just doing it for the money, because a great way to gather someone and get their money is doing it through the church. It's doing it through the guise of loving God, and here's how to be a better Christian. This is just a great way to do that. So ultimately, what I want to give the message of, I don't want to say don't go to church. I don't want to say, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying don't get God, and have that personal relationship with God, with Christ himself, and live your life according to what he has told you, not according to what your grandma said and what you've been doing since you was 8 years old. No, enough of that. Done. All right, let's get into this next topic here. This is about not achieving an orgasm for 10 years in a relationship. Yes. Red flag? I think so. So Gia Casey, who is the wife of DJ Envy, we all know him as the DJ of The Breakfast Club and at Power 105 or 103, one of them. But anyway, we know him from The Breakfast Club. You guys are familiar with him. He has been married to his wife for, I think, about more than 10 years. And they've been together since they were young kids. So they have a long-standing relationship. They have released a book that they wrote together about their relationship and just their trials, tribulations, etc., etc. There's a segment in the book when she is disclosing that for 10 years of their relationship, she has not had an orgasm by him. Now, at a later interview, DJ Envy clarified that it was the first 10 years of their relationship and not like, I guess he was saying that as like, oh, well, it was still earlier on in their relationship, excuse that if you may. And, they started off really young. So that's another excuse. Like, well, we were both really young, not sure what we were doing. So please excuse that. And on one hand, I could get that from the young standpoint of, going into relationship at an early age and being with that person. And Gia Casey said that she has only, well, I don't know if that's still the case now, but she said he was his first and they did a lot of firsts with each other. I don't know if she was his first, but from her mouth, she's saying that DJ Envy was her first sexual experience. And so, when a woman is just now getting to her sexuality and her sexual escapades, there is not much comfort around disclosing what works for me sexually and what doesn't work for me sexually. And I think this is unfortunately a common universal experience that many women experience. And she said that for the first 10 years of their relationship that she hasn't had an orgasm. Now, DJ Envy said that it wasn't like it was every time they had sex she hasn't had an orgasm, but most of the time, basically. So he was again trying to clarify, like, it wasn't like it was all the time, but most of the time. Either way, it's pretty shitty. Now, if you notice, there's a video of this interview between her with her husband, and they're doing a video Zoom-like interview with the Shade Room. And the setup is so similar to, remember that guy, what's his name? The relationship guy. Oh my gosh. And then his wife, Salvation. I'm wearing the hat of Salvation. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'm gonna tell you right now. Army of Salvation. I can't remember his name. Husband cheats. Oh my gosh. Derek Jackson. See how I figured? See? Resourceful. I know everything. No, okay. Derek Jackson, okay? So Derek Jackson is this buff, dark-skinned, handsome man, and he has created a strong following, a great personality online of him giving these strong words of wisdom, relationship advice. And it was so captivating for many women because it's like, well, this handsome man who's fit, he's well put together. He's on the woman's side. He's supporting women. He's reminding women of their worth, and he's not beating down on women like a Kevin Samuels has and does. That's his bread and butter. But with Derek Jackson, his bread and butter was about uplifting women, telling them you deserve better and a man should treat you like this, all that rah 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 type mess. Like, okay, so come to find out, he actually was cheating on his wife, and he and his wife sat on a couch together as they delivered this video message for all to see. And he posted it on his platform, and of course it went viral. And in this video, it's literally the same setup as Gia Casey and DJ Envy. You see husband and wife sitting together on this couch. They're kind of leaning towards the computer or the video, and they're sharing intimate details about their marriage and such. So it's just so funny seeing the same setup. Like, what's going on? But in this case, you see a woman, a wife here, who is essentially what looks like to be emasculating her man. And if you haven't been aware of, DJ Envy has cheated on his wife, or now I don't know the details of it. I know that he's messed with Erica Mena from Love and Hip Hop. I don't know how long that relationship was. Was it a long-standing affair, or has he had multiple affairs on her? I don't know what it is. But the theory that is out there is that his wife never got over it. Basically, his wife never really forgave him. And this book and this media run tour of her saying that she never had an orgasm by him for the first 10 years of their relationship is her get back at him. Is her way of letting him know, hey, I'm going to still hurt you because you hurt me from your previous affairs. Now, who's to say he's not still doing it? Because, okay. But their marriage is interesting because they have like 10, 11 children together. These are their joint children. And I think about the first 10 years of their relationship, they probably immediately started off with child 1, child 2. Like, they probably already had 2 kids under the tuck by that point. And knowing that DJ Envy at the time was maybe starting off in his career, or maybe getting more exposure and more money and just more popularity, and just their wealth, their fame was growing, she probably felt like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay in this thing. And so there's a couple of factors in the mix. You have a woman who hasn't reached a level in her identity, in her sexuality, to feel comfortable enough to advocate for her sexual pleasure. That's one factor. Then the next factor is you have a woman, a wife, who may just weigh out her pros and cons with her husband and realize, look, yeah, he's not getting me off, and I'm not getting much of a sexual pleasure while having sex with him, but he is supporting our lifestyle. I like our lifestyle. We already have 2 kids together. We want to have more kids together. I'm just going to chalk it up and let it be what it is. And so these things come into mix, and it explains and justifies why she hasn't had an orgasm for 10 years. He finally became aware of her lack of orgasmic pleasure because they were in an argument, and she just blurted out, well, you know, you haven't been getting me off. You know, basically, like, all the times we have sex, or most of the times we have sex, I haven't been experiencing an orgasm. And she was saying in that interview where they're on the couch, that she wanted to reward him, because, you know, when you're having sex with your man and the man is putting in the work in and pumping and you know, pumping, right? And she's not feeling it. Like, I'm sure she feels the dick. What I'm saying is, like, she's not feeling it emotionally. Like, she's not mentally present with him. Maybe she knew of a previous affair and she's still mad about that. So I don't know. So all of those things come into mix, and she's not getting any pleasure from it. But he thought he was giving her pleasure, because he said himself that he's heard her moan and groan, and it sounded like she was getting off, but it was all a lie. So that made me think about my previous sexual experiences and how it's always been a lie. No, I mean, honestly, it wasn't up until recently when I've been really experiencing sexual pleasure in my intercourse experiences. Like, it really hasn't been up until recently. Prior to my relationship now, it would really be let's roll these dice. Am I gonna get an orgasm or not? And I knew without a shadow of a doubt I would never get an orgasm while being penetrated. And that was just always my experience. And the men I had sex with prior never made it their mission to make sure I was getting off. And I wasn't at a place in my adulthood when I felt comfortable enough to advocate for that and really get my fix, right? Because it's my experience just as it is yours. So why am I not getting anything out of it? Why am I only a vehicle for you, right? But at the time, I didn't have the vocabulary to advocate for that. And so you had many experiences of men who was just, relieved, while I'm over here, okay, well, I'll just make up the bed right now. It just is so stupid. But, shout out to growth. I'm so happy right now that I'm experiencing such great sexual pleasure from my relationship, and it's great. But I recognize that experience, and how, one, if you're not advocating for yourself, then it's not going to happen, right? And if you're not with someone who actually cares about your sexual pleasure and your sexual experience, then it's not going to happen. So like, two things have to be true. And when you're in a relationship with someone who's not in alignment with your body, like, I feel like that's just an immediate red flag. And it's not to say that DJ Envy wasn't in alignment with her body, but I think, I don't know, I feel like if you know your wife and you know her body, right? Y'all been together for a long time. I think you should figure out if she's faking or not, right? Like, I feel like it's not like she's taken acting classes and made it, I don't know, but I just feel like at some point, if I'm faking it with my man, I would be embarrassed, because I'm like, damn, he's gonna catch me faking it, And I just, at the very least, don't even fake it. Just like, you have your moans, but like, your moans doesn't necessarily mean it's orgasm. There's an orgasm coming into play. So I think, there's some responsibility from him that he should account for this experience. Like, why are you immediately believing her fake ass orgasms? Like, why are you not being aware of her foolery? Like, what's going on with that? So ultimately, I think bodies and minds need to be in tune with each other. But it's just one of those things where if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. And it comes for everything. It comes for like relationships, sexual experiences, whether good or bad, right? It just, you have to recognize, hey, I deserve a nut. I do. Okay, let's move on. Monica and C Murder. Okay, this one's, I don't even know how to approach this conversation without sounding like I am for them, because I kind of am, and I feel bad in support of this relationship because there's so many factors to it. So let's get into it. So Monica is, Monica's R&B artist. You think of Brandy, think of Monica, right? So Monica, she has so many hit songs. One of her hit songs is called "You Should Have Known Better." You should have known better. Dun, 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 dun. And basically in the music video of the song and in the lyrics, she talks and expresses about her loyalty, her unwavering loyalty to her man, whom is incarcerated. And she's saying, like, it doesn't matter if you're up, matter if you're down, either way I'm gonna be around, either way I'm gonna. It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's touching, right? Like, it's honoring, it's honorable to be someone who's receiving that loyalty, right? So I think it's amazing expression of that. But okay, the thing is like, okay, C Murder, he's a rapper, a murderer. I'm kidding. It's like, I don't know, but let's look at why he's in prison, because he's been locked up for, like, since I was a kid. Like, nigga, are you gonna die in prison? Like, what is going on? But he's been locked up for a long time. Let's look at this article. Why is C Murder in jail, and when is his release date? That's the article title. So American rapper, his name is Corey Miller, who went by the stage name C Murder, was arrested in 2002 after a jury voted 10-2 in favor of sentencing the rapper to life in prison. Oh my God, today. Okay. So a decade later, the rapper still insists his innocence, with two key witnesses retracting their statements. It could mean a new trial is on, trial. Trial is on its way. It's so funny how there's typos in an article that's online. Anyway, so Corey Miller, he's known as C Murder. He yada yada yada, from New Orleans, Louisiana. He's associated with, Well, his brother is music mogul Master P. Oh my gosh, why did I forget that? Of course, that's his brother. I forgot. So his brother's Master P. We know Master P, No Limit, yada yada yada. And he's also brothers to Silk the Shocker. Yes, I forgot. Yes. So why is he in jail? In 2009, C Murder was found guilty. Wait, hold on. 2009. So how did it? Oh, so he was arrested in 2002, but didn't get officially sentenced in 2009? Yeah, I guess so. Okay. So in 2009, C Murder was found guilty of the accusations leveled against him, and the rapper was sentenced to life in prison. He was convicted of murdering 16-year-old Stephen Thomas, who was killed at a Louisiana nightclub back in 2002. Okay, so it took 7 years from that incident for him to be sentenced, and he was sentenced to prison with a life sentence. So here we have C Murder. He's trying to just prove his innocence. He's been maintaining his innocence ever since, but there's been just a trail of unsuccessful appeals, and he is still incarcerated. As Miller has been sentenced to life in prison, he will be unable to leave unless he can demonstrate that he is not liable for the crimes against him. However, controversy surrounding witnesses in his prosecution erupted in 2018 when 2 major witnesses recanted their statements. That's interesting. So why did they recant their statements? What happened? Were they put in a position that made them recant? Both claimed they were coerced into testifying against Miller by authorities. Now, this is nothing new, unfortunately. We live in a world where police officers, those who are corrupt police officers, would just coerce anyone they have in front of them in order to make the case, in order to close a case, in order to be seen as the hero because they found justice, right? So these 2 witnesses finally recanted their statements in 2018. I guess they felt comfortable enough to do so. So the first witness, his name is Kenneth Jordan. He came forward and said that, I know that the individual who I saw shoot the gun was not Corey Miller. That's his direct quote. The second witness, Darnell Jordan, so okay, they're brothers maybe, said, I am certain that Corey Miller did not shoot Steve Thomas. Okay, well, look, I don't know what the exact details are. Why was it pinned that C Murder killed this young man? What is the evidence? Is there video recording? Is there surveillance? What's the proof that supports that? But allegedly there is evidence enough or allegations that were strong enough, which still doesn't mean shit, right? Just because there's allegations, like you have this example here that these 2 witnesses recanted their statements in 2018. So who knows what happened? So let's just make that the standing point of this conversation here. C Murder could not have, maybe he did not do the crime. Maybe he was framed. Maybe he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe he had just already a strong rap sheet set against him. Like maybe he did like petty crime in the past and it was easy to pin this on him. Maybe he had a troubled relationship with the cops and they wanted to get him, because unfortunately this is a real thing. We have corrupt police officers, not every police officer, but there are ones who are corrupt who would purposely pin evidence that is false against a random black person or anyone else who may fit their agenda, and that person is now locked up for X amount of years, if not life in prison, and may be executed depending on the crime. So that is that. American socialite Kim Kardashian, who finished her first year of law school at the start of 2020, has stepped in to see if she can help free Miller and find the truth behind this tragedy. Wouldn't it be so hilarious if Kim Kardashian was able to free him? Now, if he is an innocent man in prison, then I do hope he gets freed. I do hope justice is had, and there is a finale to this. But okay, in the midst of it all, you have Monica, who has been in relationship with this man for many years. Allegedly, they met when she was young. Now, I saw a couple of different ages that claims that's when they met. So I saw one claim that they met when she was 14 and he was a couple years older. Okay. I saw another claim that she was 17 or 18 and he was still, of course, a couple of years older. Now, I don't know which one is true, but there's a lot of pictures circulating around just their timeline. There's older pictures that you could see of them together, and she's clearly this young girl. Now, you know, Monica, she started in the music industry at a very young age. She started at 14. No, I want to say 12. Hold on. Just one of them days. Monica, just one of them days. Age. She was like, I want to say she was 12. Where is the age? Yada. Monica. Oh, she was 14. Yeah. So, well, okay. So she was 14 when that album or that song was released, but she may have been 12 when she started recording it, etc., etc. Okay. Just one of them days. Don't take it personal. Unfortunately, this was during a time when young girls were dating older men. Hello, I know. Oh my gosh, we can't say that. Hello, can you turn the volume up? Is the mic on? This is nothing new under the sun. Now, this is not to victim blame. This is not to shift the blame away from the man, right? Away from the predator. Like, I'm not even going to go as far as to call him as such, but I'm just painting the picture that this was a time in our culture when it was okay, when it was normal for younger women to happen to have an 18-year-old boyfriend and you're 14, to happen to have a 24-year-old boyfriend and you're shy of 18. Like, and it sounds icky now. I get it. It sounds icky now. It sounds strange now, but it was what it was back then. Just like how back then in the 70s, 60s, Quaaludes was marijuana. Like, it was just a thing that niggas did. Men, women, black, white, poor, young, poor, rich. Like, Quaaludes was just one of those drugs that was normally used and consumed, and it just was what it was. And so when I look at just their alleged start line, starting point of their relationship, I think of just how life was during this point in time and how culturally this was accepted. So let's just start from that point, okay? It was fine. It was okay back then. We're looking at relationships in our 2022 perspective, yet we need to drop that lens, drop those glasses, and look at it from the perspective of how it was in 1999, in 95. Like, that just, okay, so it just was what it was. Like, think about Brandy. Brandy was with Wanye from Boys to Men. Wanye was a couple of years older than her. Okay, Brandy was young as well. Aaliyah and R. Kelly, I can't say his name, right? But that was also a relationship that was deemed normal, unfortunately. Now, whether you want to paint R. Kelly as a predator or not, the point is Aaliyah had family members, people around her who had a blind eye, apparently, that did not interfere enough for them to be able to go ahead and get married legally. Like, what the fuck? Like, and that's the whole point. Like, the fact that they were able to get married, the fact that R. Kelly, who was in his early 20s, was able to marry a young girl who was 14, 15 at the time is just beyond me. Like, how did you even have access to do that? But that was the culture at that time. It was culturally acceptable. Go back to biblical days. Like, you started families at 12 years old. Like, what are we talking about here, right? Beyonce and Jay-Z. Hello? Is the mic on? Beyonce was young, 15, 16 when she was in Destiny's Child in the earlier years, right? Her and Jay-Z, like we know them as the couple that started after Beyonce started her solo career, right? But we didn't imagine, oh, maybe Jay-Z like had a friendship with her or whatever it was with her prior to their public relationship. So Jay-Z is we already know he's dumb older than her. Like, he's dumb older than her. And who's to say that they didn't start when she was 16, 15, around the age? Not to say that they did anything sexually at the time, but I'm sure they may have started prior to us knowing, prior to it being a public matter. Like, we didn't know about their relationship until Beyonce started her solo career. So, until Crazy in Love came about. Got me looking so crazy, right? So, anyway, let's just get that we got that out of the way, okay? So, when I think about Monica and C Murder, okay, first of all, that rap name doesn't really help you in this case, huh? Like, I'm sure that was another easy target. Like, damn, he goes by C Murder. Of course he murdered this 16-year-old kid. Like, yikes. But anyway, it's a pseudonym. Like, why should I be persecuted for my artistic expression, right? So I'm always on the side of the creator, of the artiste, and so whatever. So there's a lot of backlash against Monica because there's a recent picture that came about. I think they spent Easter together. And honestly, the picture looks like, so it's a black and white photo, and I may even make this picture the podcast episode picture. Let's see if I do it, but you'll find out once you listen to this episode. But in this photo, it's black and white, and she's wearing all black. She got Jordans on. He got jeans on. He got a black top on. It looks like he got a necklace on. Like, are you in jail? Like, what? Is this not jail anymore? Like, how are you able to get dressed up? Like, I assume that he would have been in all orange or, whatever color gown he has to wear as a prisoner. But he looks pretty dressed, like, as a civilian. And so it looks like they're on a bleacher stand. Like, I literally thought that he got freed and they're presenting to the world as a couple. I don't know. It just looks weird. But it looks like they're sitting on a bleacher stand and she's cuddled up on him. He's holding her from her back and she is posing to the camera, and it is what it is, right? So the picture definitely presents as a relationship, right? A woman who is still down for her nigga, still loves and supports her man, and it really speaks true to her song, You Should Have Known Better. Now, she got a lot of backlash for this photo because it's like, Monica, please. Like, right? There's this tweet that's been viral since this photo came about, and it literally just says, Monica, please. And, you read that in the tone of, like, girl, please. Like, Monica, please stop. Please stop. Please stop. Monica, please. Monica, please. Let this go. Monica, please. And just at the tweet alone is funny, right? It's funny. But I was reading different tweets about it under the comments, and I was seeing just a strong stance on both sides. Like, on one stance, you see the rhetoric of, like, why is she still with a man who's incarcerated? She should know her worth, and what is she doing? Like, she's a fool, just dogging her for being in a relationship with him. And then on the other hand, you have comments of saying that they rock with it. Like, wow, this shows someone who is really loyal, who really loves a man. And she's down for him, and that's commendable. And I want someone who loves me just as much Monica loves C. Murder. Like, that was a lot of the rhetoric that I would read about this. And I was getting more into just the idea of, what if C. Murder is innocent, right? Like, what if he did not do what was said that he did, what was charged against him, and he has been paying the price of an unfounded allegation, yet he still is incarcerated until justice is had, right? And this is just yet another example, unfortunately, of Black men who have been pinned against from the system and who have to pay the cost of that by their life and their quality of life taken from them because they're incarcerated. Right? Like, what if this is just another case of just a false imprisonment and something that needs to be vindicated? So I think about it from that standpoint. It saddens me because it's like, damn, say if he is innocent, say if he is not founded guilty to the charge against him, and he has been just rotting away, quote unquote, in prison, and not have been able to live life, to not be able to live life with Monica and just be with her and grow together and have children and all these things. Like, that is sad. So I look at Monica being someone who is showing him loyalty. Like, I am still with you. And then, we remember Monica was with Shannon Brown, this basketball player who was recently found out as one of the PPP scammers last year. Something going on with that. But either way, Shannon Brown and Monica are no longer married. They are divorced. Monica signed the papers, and she, as soon as their divorce came to public, she was just immediately on C. Murder again. Like, it was immediately posted, her love for him, her loyalty towards him. And it just made me wonder, like, dang, I wonder throughout their marriage, was she still showing that love and loyalty to C. Murder? Like, I wonder if she was still calling him, if she visited him still, and like, what happened with that? Because they were married. Shannon Brown and Monica was married for a couple of years until they got their divorce. So during their years of marriage, was she no longer in contact with C. Murder? Like, what happened with that? Because when you're in love, or still love, whatever it looks like, but still in a relationship with someone who is incarcerated, you are out, right? You're out in the free world. You're living life while the man who you love is not able to live that life with you. He is stuck in this container, and he has to just keep his head up, right, as best as he can. But ultimately, he's locked up. He's literally locked up. And now, I want to advise women to necessarily stay with a man who's incarcerated, or stay with him and like not have a relationship outside. Like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what that looks like. But obviously, Monica still decided to move forward and marry someone else, right? But that marriage didn't work out, and now she's back with C. Murder, what it looks like. So there's a lot of backlash against this, because it's like, Monica, please, like, why are you doing this? Like, what's going on? But again, I find it commendable, but it's a tricky situation, because I don't know, girl. Like, it'll be one thing if he was locked up for, maybe he was locked up for 12 years, right? Because he was locked up in 2009, so 12 years from then. Shit, hold on. Let's do the math. 2009 plus 12 years. He would have been out last year. Right? If there was a number to his sentence, but the fact that his sentence was life, girl, it's like, Monica, please. Like, I don't know. So, but, of course, there are cases of Black men who are currently incarcerated or who have been incarcerated, and it was a false incarceration. It shouldn't have happened. They were falsely accused, and they paid the price for that by just a subtraction of their life was taken from them for X amount of years until vindication happened. Now, I don't know how long that happens, and I do wish, I wish them the best, because ultimately, like, when I look at that picture of them together, 2022, and she's still just riding for him and all these things, it's just like, it touches me. It does something to me. It makes me feel happy for them. I don't know. Is that weird? Maybe, but it does touch me, like, dang. And then a part of me is rooting for him to be released and justice to be had, and for him to really be found innocent for the alleged crime against him. I don't know, but that is the latest with Monica. Like, she was supposed to release an album. What the fuck happened to that? But whatever. Speaking of Black love, Will and Jada. So Will has been spotted in India. Let's look that up. There's an image that came across my timeline of Will Smith in India, and he's like not posing, but he's waving to a paparazzi. So yeah, actor Will Smith spotted in India's Mumbai's airport. And it's like, this is so planned in my head, because it's like, you know, India is one of the countries in which there's like healing and like yoga, and you go there if you really want to, you know, find peace, I guess. Like, it's like that Eat, Pray, Love type of journey. You know, that movie. I actually never watched that movie. No, I think I did watch that movie. I just don't remember much of it. But I love Julia Roberts, so I may have to check that out if I really care. But anyway, but yeah, he was spotted on Saturday in Mumbai, India. And he's smiling in pictures. He's exiting a vehicle, and it's not clear as to why he's there, but we could kind of tell that he's just looking for some answer, right? He's looking for peace. He's looking for love, and India is what has been portrayed to us of India. It is the place to go, one of the places to go to in the world when you're trying to find peace and order and love and purpose. Like, you go to one of the healers there, and you just talk to them, or they talk to you and talk to you about your ancestors, and, you know, all these things. So I do wish him the best. I think ultimately what he needs to do is divorce Jada, but I don't know if they got married under the context of a prenup. So, and I don't know if a postnup ever happened, right? So I don't know how it's gonna be if he does divorce her. It's gonna be something where it may be cheaper to keep her. It may be cheaper to be in a relationship with her, be in a marriage with her, because, hey, you're gonna take me for half of my money. But, like, so what? Fuck it. Like, what is money? I was just talking about money earlier. No, but seriously, I feel like we make excuses, you know, like we make excuses to stay. And maybe it's a word for me. Damn, I was just talking about like my job and like and what I want for myself, like what I want my life to look like as far as like self-preservation, what that looks like. And like, I don't want to work in the same environment that I've been working in. Not to say like specifically the school that I'm working at, but like just in the context that I'm working in. Like, I want to ultimately work for myself and work towards that. But it takes really me to do that. It takes me to be more diligent and disciplined in doing so. So that's a word for me too. So when I say this out loud here on this podcast, it's not to just say, hey, y'all gotta do this, but not me. But yeah, ultimately, like, I think sometimes we do make excuses. Like, we make excuses and justify our standing still moments because of this, because of that. And I think if that is one of the reasons why he is still in this marriage, the reason of, well, it'll be cheaper to keep her, I think that's just bullshit. I just feel like money comes to you in abundance, right? Let's just start there. Will Smith could really, I feel like, here's what I think could happen. I think if he divorces her, because Jada has already been seen as and painted as this villain, okay? A lot of people are not on her side. People are calling her witches. And I sometimes, like, I could see a witch label on her. Like, it's not far off. So I think if we see Will filing for divorce against her, we're rooting for him. Like, even though he should have never smacked Chris Rock, but he was under the spell of Jada, and now that he is standing up for himself and getting this divorce from her, then we're rooting for him. I think this will be like a great start to a comeback, and he may get more deals. I know he got suspended from the Oscars for 10 years, which is like ridiculous. But niggas could change their mind in year 2. Like, you know what? We see your growth. You got a divorce. You're going through a hard time, and you've been on this redemption tour. You're invited back. I don't think that's gonna be a real strong 10-year. Like, I think that's going to be reduced. I think it's just like a thing that we see for now. But yeah, I think ultimately if he divorces her, we will be on his side, and he'll get a comeback from it, and he will be just fine. He will be just fine. So there's this article that came about from OK Magazine. Okay, this is a accredited magazine source, and it says here, quote, "Ever since the Oscar scandal, tensions between them have been palpable. There have been problems for years, but they're barely speaking now. If they were to split, Will has a fortune of $350 million that Jada will be entitled to half of under Californian law. It could be one of the ugliest divorces in showbiz history and drag on longer than Angelina's and Brad's did." And it's like, look, you're not the first person to get a divorce from your wife, from your spouse, whom you did not have a prenup with or a postnup with, and you are worth millions. We have the case of Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Angelina and Brad. Like, there's so many examples of actors, of entrepreneurs, of business people who have gone through this very experience of divorcing their spouse and having to cough of half of their worth. And it's like, it's so easy for me to say, like, well, I'm not of that social economic class, so I'm looking at it as like, nigga, you're still rich. But when you're of that social economic class, you see it as just a shot down, because now I had 350 milli, now I'm half to that. Like, that's wild. So I just think it's a mindset shift. I think ultimately Will Smith needs to recognize his worth, and going back into that, but there's only so much you could take. And I think hopefully this trip in India could make him realize his worth, and he comes back with papers signed, sealed, delivered to Jada. But girl, I don't know. How about she was embarrassed beyond poor belief, poor woman. Yeah, I just, child, it's the ghetto. So just divorce her and move on. Ready to love. Let's get into it.
Now I'm ready to love.
All right. Let's get into, I love saying that, right? Let's get into it. Joy and Clifton. Now, I've been bandwagoning, supporting. I got t-shirts I don't, but I am in support of Joy and Clifton. I am in support of a woman knowing who she wants and being tunnel vision for that. And I hated all the haters being like, oh, she's being thirsty. She's like a pick me. Like, no. If you like your nigga, yeah, I want you to pick me. The fuck? Like, why is that a weird thing? Like, if I like you, I want you to pick me. I want you to like me right back. I want you to love me right back. Yeah, pick me. Choose me, nigga. Yes, 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 yes. Do it all. Do it all. Do it to me. And thankfully he did. And so I don't see the issue. But anyway, I am in support of Joy and Clifton. Joy is living in Mexico. Like, girl, what? Like, was this just like a twist that needed to be had? And she just dropped the bomb. Like, how soon did he know? How soon did she tell him? Did she only tell him until after she solidified a strong connection with him and it was mutual? Like, I don't know, but that just really sucks. It really sucks. She'll be living in Mexico for 6 months, 6 months out of the year, and she's a singer. So that's just a part of her job. But it's like, nigga, why can't you just sing in America? Like, I don't know how the music industry works. Like, maybe she get more money in Mexico. Like, maybe she's more popular there and she gets more exposure and her record deal is over. I don't know how it works, but like, can't you make that work in America? Like, at the very least, it'll be one thing if she was moving to a new state in America, and that's still long distance, but it's more accessible for Clifton to see her at a whim, right? Like, he doesn't have to wait around vacation time for work to fly out to her. And being so that it's international, it's just like more complicated than it has to be. Now, I don't remember what Clifton does for work. I don't know if he ever said it or if it was like spoken in detail. But if he has a job that is flexible, then hey, they can make it work. But we have to keep in mind that he is a father and he's an active father, which is admirable. Like, that's great. But so how does that look like? Like, now he's gonna be 6 months out of the year away from his kids, with her. Like, I don't know, something has to give. And I'm not saying it has to be her, but I'm just saying, like, how much money are you getting from this singing gig? Let's just be honest there. How much money are you getting from this singing gig? Are you weighing out the options of the pros and cons of singing in America? Like, what does that look like for you in America? Like, what if there are other singing opportunities that you can explore in America? Or have you just been locked down to Mexico? Like, is she contractually obliged to be in Mexico? Like, what does that look like? So maybe there's more conversation that will be shared with us in the reunion episode that's coming up. But yeah, it was such a beautiful ending to the season. I really just love seeing Joy and Clifton grow more and more together. I was shocked, but actually very pleasantly impressed by Paul, P.O. Paul, him saying that he chooses himself. And I feel like, being the man that he presented himself as, I kind of felt like he was still going to choose Dakia, because Dakia, she's such a catch, right? She's such a catch. She's a beautiful woman. She's accomplished. She doesn't, not to say like, women with kids are not good. I'm not saying that, but like, sometimes men would prefer women who are without a child, and she doesn't have any children at her age. And I think that makes her look even more valuable. Unfortunately, I'm not saying this as a way to support that rhetoric, but this is sometimes the perspective of some men. They would rather the woman that they date be without a child. So she has that full package. But Paul decided to still say no, and I commend him for that, because I think it takes just some level of honesty. Like, look, you're a beautiful woman. I'm a great catch myself, and there is not enough chemistry sexually, romantically, physically between us, and I don't want to force it and just tie you up because, oh, you're a great catch. Like, I don't think that's fair. So I think that's very admirable for him to respectfully say, you know, I choose me, and you're a great woman, and you'll make you know, yada yada yada, that whole speech. And you know, Dakia was not hurt at all. She was gonna choose herself still, and they will just be friends if they so choose. So that's great. What I want to comment on about Dakia though is, she said a comment. She was like, she will continue to wait for the love she deserves. What am I gonna say? Is the mic on? Let's start there. Is the mic on? Because, oh my God. Okay, let me drink this water. Hold on. Why am I laughing? I think this statement is such full of shit to me. I really do. And I know it sounds so honorable, right? It sounds like, yes, wait for your love. How long am I waiting? Until when? Until when? Because at this point, Dakia is 38. And I think she lied about her age because I think she's a little bit older. She may be in her early 40s. But this woman, this beautiful woman, is 38, allegedly. She's been waiting how long? Something has to give. Like, what are we talking about? What the fuck are we talking about? Oh, I'm going to wait for the love well, maybe you got to check what you deserve. Maybe you got to reevaluate what you deserve, ma. Because at this point, I'm going to be waiting until I'm croaking. Until I croak. I'm going to be waiting until it's no more breath in me. Like, well, at least I didn't settle. Like, nah, bitch. Sometimes, like I said in the last episode, or the episode prior, I forgot which one. Sometimes you gotta settle, and you determine what type of settling you're going to settle for. Like, you know, what does that look like for you? But at the very least, in any romantic relationship, there is a level of settling that you must just submit to. Like, it just has to be it, because we're thinking about, like, I feel like women like her, like these successful, beautiful, like good on paper Black women, they fall under that guise of, you know, I don't need a man, and I'll wait until the rooster croaks. You know, I will wait until pigs fly, and I'm not gonna settle, and I would rather be single, and I could do bad all by myself, Tyler Perry type of shit. And it's like, girl, but you're still alone. Hello, is the mic on? You're still alone. You're still sleeping alone. You're lonely, and we have to stop acting like you're not. We have to stop acting like you're not. You're fucking lonely. Like, oh my gosh, dog. Like, this angers me, because it's like, this is a lie that a lot of Black women are falling susceptible to. Like, they're falling for this lie of, well, I'll just wait until the love I deserve meets me. When? Sometimes you gotta accept things for what they are, and then you decide, well, is this enough for me to settle? You know, like, do the pros outweigh the cons? Like, I honestly have to say that, because not everything, no love is perfect. There's no, like, ideal for it. Like, we fall victim to these images that we see on social media and to what we see on TV, and we think, oh, this is the love that I deserve, and this is the love that I will not settle anything less for, and this is what I'm gonna wait for. And it's like, but the niggas in real life are not like this. And until you're waiting for, like, a mass awakening for men to suddenly shape up and be this perfect visual and representation of a man for you that fits your social media standard, you're gonna keep on waiting forever. Like, it's not going to happen. It's really not. Like, you gotta settle. You have to settle. Fuck. And it sounds horrible. It does. But I'm not saying, like, I don't know. I just feel like ultimately, like, does this man make you happy? If you say yes, then start from there. And then ask yourself the other little things that come into mind, that come into our relationship, that may present as an obstacle. Like, hey, he doesn't make as much as me, right? I've been in this professional field for 10, 15 years, and I'm making a great amount of money, and he's entry level money. He's bringing in entry level money into our relationship. But he makes me happy though. Like, I'm happily in love, and he treats me with respect, and he loves me right. Like, that's a form of settling, right? Because you may want your man to make more money and for him to be more financially sound, but he's not there. So that's a form of settling, because look, I'm just going to sacrifice that because everything else is great. He treats me well. He's attentive. He's intentional with me. Like, everything is just great. And so, like, that's a quick example, but like, there's so many ways that we settle. Like, maybe he's not the height that I want, or maybe he's not as romantic as I imagine my husband to be, but he provides for me. He knows my birthday. He remembers my birthday. But ultimately, I think you have to start with that question. Does he make you happy? Yes? Okay. Everything else under that you may find to be a little bit of a problem, is it that much of a problem that you're just going to throw away the relationship? Or is it not that much of a problem? Like, can you live with that? And I feel like a lot of these Black women who are of that same mindset of, I'll wait until the love I deserve, is like, but girl, you're gonna keep on waiting. Like, you have to decide, like, hey, I like this man. I know I'm a 401k type of woman, and he just got out of jail. But he makes me happy. Look. Let me drink this water. Hold on. I'm thirsty. Literally, just not in any other way. I'm not like, yay, shut up. But seriously, I feel like she is gonna keep on waiting. She could get any man she desires, I'm sure. Or, I don't know. But, like, I think we need to just not lower our standards, but to be realistic. Okay? We have to look at what are our non-negotiables. Like, what do we certainly require? Like, let's put away the fluffy stuff. Let's put away the stuff that really doesn't matter. Let's look at the intangible stuff. Like, does he make me feel at peace? Does he make me feel happy? Does he add value to my life? Because if you're making me feel peaceful, or at peace and happy and love, that is adding value to my life. So I don't see it as, like, sometimes people see value as financial gain. Like, is he adding value to my life because he's buying me the new purses, the new luxurious purses? He's buying me jewelry. Like, that is not what I see as valuable. And so I just really want Black women who are deceived by this rhetoric of wait for the love you deserve. It's like, girl, maybe you got to stop waiting. Maybe you got to stop. Like, maybe at one point you have to say to yourself, I deserve love now. Hey, like, I deserve love right now. And at this point in my life, I will compromise. If you don't like the word settle, right? But I will compromise with X, Y, and Z, because at this very point, I realize my happiness is my priority, and I am in pursuit of that. And what I realize in this relationship with you, right, in this dating experience, that you make me happy, right? Like, you have to, like, just reevaluate. We have to stop. Like, Dakia, stop. Fucking 38 talking about I'm waiting for the love I deserve. How long? It's just ridiculous, okay? All right, you guys, I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every listen. If you would like to sound off on any topic that I discuss, feel free to click the link in the show notes and leave your voice message there, and I will include it in a future episode. Please be sure to check out our Instagram page at God Built This Pod, where I've been giving more commentary on topics that resonate with me that I would naturally talk about anyway. So I've been using God Built This Pod as more of a platform for me to sound off that I would naturally do on an episode. So if you like that content, if you like this content anyway, just continue to support by following the podcast page, by telling a friend about this podcast, by leaving reviews and giving me 5 stars. Like, that's really big. I'm noticing more reviews left for this on the iTunes part, so I'm really happy about that. So shout out to y'all who have been leaving reviews on iTunes. That is amazing. And I don't know if there's a way to do that on Spotify, but if there is, please do so. If there's a way to do that on Anchor, please do so. But yes, iTunes, leave a review. Thank you for those of you who have been leaving reviews. I'm seeing more reviews on iTunes for this podcast, so I'm so grateful for that. And God Built This Podcast is now playing on Google Podcasts. So if you happen to have the Google Podcast or Google Play, please be sure to subscribe to God Built This Pod on there and leave a review there as well. Leave a positive review, of course. But yeah, with your commentary on what you enjoy about this show and about me as the host and the topics that we discuss, like what do you get from it? I love that and I appreciate it so much. So thank you again for listening, and I will check in with you all next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.